Good morning, everyone. I'm Coco.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Astrid.
And we are so honored to be here as Gala students, getting the chance to learn directly from leaders who are shaping our city, our systems, and even our understanding of the universe.
Each of these women have taken a different path through public service, transportation, or science, but all of them have broken barriers and created opportunities for others along the way.
We're so excited to ask a few questions, not just about what they've achieved, but how they got there, what they've learned, and what advice they have for students like us. Thank you all for being here and showing your service. Thank you. Okay, so our first question is, when you were our age, did you imagine yourself in the position you're in right now? And at our age, what did you think your future would look like?
I'll start. I'm actually quite impressed. Congratulations. These young ladies prepare for and, go through their runner show and, to get accepted to 3 incredible colleges. I feel like an underachiever in some ways. But I had just a very unique journey, and I didn't actually apply to school, to college. Working class parents, and they just didn't know about the college process. And so I was sitting in my senior year as my classmates were getting acceptance to Long Beach State, UC Berkeley, UCLA, USC. I said, oops, I missed the memo, and had to quickly figure out how to navigate, because I did know, the circumstances that I grew up in with my family, that college and education is a great equalizer. And so I decided to join the United States military and have service is very big in my family. So I joined the service. I was stationed in Europe because I wanted to travel and just kind of figure out, as a young woman of color, mixed race woman, how to navigate a world that wasn't designed for me to succeed. And so I was able to do that and attended Loyola Marymount University and then attended this university as a graduate student. So.
Well, when I was your age, I absolutely was not thinking that I would be where I am today. So I chuckled when you asked that question. I think that, first of all, when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a doctor. Again, science, math, I was good at. And the summer of my junior year, I volunteered as, we were called candy stripers back then. I don't think they call them. You got me. Parents know what I'm talking about. And that was an enlightening experience, because I determined after the end of that candy striper role, that was not going to be my career. But I do think what the common thread from that summer of internship and wanting to be a doctor and where I am today is what I really knew that I wanted to do was to be in service to other people. And I have the privilege of being able to do that in my role today. I will say also, I'm a first-generation college student, and my parents willed me into college. They just would say to everyone, oh, Stephanie's going to go to college. We didn't quite know how to get there. And so I want to lift up, if you still have guidance counselors at Gala. Can I just lift up the guidance counselors? Because I will never forget that my junior year in high school, I'm just walking through the corridor, and the guidance counselor comes over to me and says, hey, we have the ACT exam coming up, the pre-SAT exam coming up, and I do not see your name on the list. I didn't even know what he was talking about. But because he made that small intervention and asked, then I started researching SAT, PSAT, ACT, got signed up and took the test, and we're here. But I just want to recognize that there are people in your life that you may encounter and you're not sure why. And it's really good to be an active listener to help you navigate and just nudge you into the direction you need to be.
I need to be at your school. I love that you talk about the person who helped you find that path, because for me, I
but knew that I was interested in space from a very young age, but I didn't know what a career in that would look like. I knew of engineers, I sort of knew of scientists, but nobody in my family had a STEM background. And while my parents were supportive, they didn't know what to direct me towards. And I had a teacher in 8th grade who saw that I loved the quarter of physics that we did and knew that I loved space and introduced me to this field called astrophysics and sent me down this pathway. Looking back now in my role at SLOOH, where I get to lead a company that is helping spread the wonder of the night sky with everybody, it makes sense. I look at it and I'm like, oh, I love what I'm doing. This connects to the same love that I fell in love with the night sky in high school. But at the time, I definitely wouldn't have predicted it. I have a mentor who says your career only makes sense in retrospect. When you look backwards, you're like, oh, this person told me this, and I went to learn about this program, and they connected me to this person, and I applied to that, and now I'm here. So I always encourage, as you think about your careers and think about what comes next for all the students in this room, to be wide open with the possibilities that you consider. I love hearing the combination of science and visual arts that you talked about, and the just variety of interests, and knowing that you can always find ways to pull them together that may not make sense in the moment, but in retrospect, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is who I am.
Thank you guys so much. Next question is, have you ever been in a space where you felt like you didn't fully belong, and how did you navigate that?
I guess I'm going. I like to say that every game for me is an away game. I walk into rooms still to this day where I'm often the only woman, and more often the only woman of color. And what I've learned through my leadership journey is you can't wait for other people to validate you. That you have to believe in your preparation. You have to believe in your hard work, your core values. You have to really take time to be reflective about when you're in those rooms, how to turn discomfort into data. Navigating who speaks up, who doesn't. Listening for where the power shifts in the power dynamics. And you have to learn to move with grace and with courage, with confidence, with silence sometimes. And it's still, I don't know, 25, 30 years into my career, it's still lessons that I'm learning. The other thing that I'll say is, as you each navigate your trajectory, and I love the point about, I heard that your careers aren't linear. Right, that they are opportunities, and for me, my career doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't really make sense in life, but it does make sense to me in retrospect. But it's also finding at each moment in your career journey, what are the lessons about yourself? What are the lessons to fortify who you are and your core values? And what are those lessons that help you become a better leader, to have the courage to not just be successful, but to make sure that when you're in those rooms, that you're speaking about the communities and the individuals that aren't represented in that room. Because I do carry Black women on my shoulder in every room that I go in. And I've learned that I belong. The last thing I'll say is, just if I don't get a moment to say this, because I've been reflecting on it, particularly in the time period that we're in, where quite frankly, people of color are being erased in this country. And I was at a conversation with Wes Moore, who's the governor of Maryland, incredible. And he was telling the journey of his father, of his grandfather and his father, who came back to America from Jamaica. And he said something that has stuck with me, is that America is incomplete without me. America is incomplete without me. And so I just offer that to everyone in this room, as a woman of color, that you do belong, and that we all have a responsibility to each other to make sure that we're being the voice of other women and other women of color when we do get to those rooms.
Powerful, Renata. Very powerful. Very powerful. She's a rock star. So every room that I've been in, it's been my whole career. And I think that for me, my journey was that when I walked into a room, my skin color spoke before anything else, before I could say a word. So for my career, I didn't really think that the career choice I was making was a male-dominated field, but it clearly was after I got there. And so my whole life I've been underestimated, and quickly I just decided I wasn't going to let that hold me back. And it was very interesting that only when I became into executive roles, you know, whether it was the chief of procurement, the deputy chief executive officer, and the CEO, that then my gender became an issue, right? So it's very interesting. I never really dealt with the gender bias until I started making real money, okay? Being in a decision-making role. So I have not only just decided that I was not going to be swayed by it, even though it shows up, I've lifted up that your voice matters. And I'm bringing a different perspective and helping the agency make better decisions. And so when I started getting into leadership positions, particularly the deputy CEO role, because I was the first at Metro as a deputy CEO, women would come to me, employees, to ask me how I did it. And I didn't understand why they were coming to me then, and it was only because, again, they were seeing gender now, and I just had not thought of me being a gendered person. And so I did what I've heard Donna Brazile quoted to say, is when you're the first through the door, you're supposed to turn around and take the door off the hinges. So we created the Women and Girls Governing Council, so that inside of Metro, so that we could look at opportunities to create gender parity as an employer, look at how we create a more inclusive environment for women and girls as a service provider, and then also look at how we lift up the economic sustainability of women through our economic development programs. And so we are focused on changing the trajectory so women feel included and that they belong, and that actually now has extended to all ethnicities and demographies within Metro. So I'm very proud that we have a youth council that we've started. We have employee resource groups that when I started as a CEO, we had 3. We now have 13, that we want to make sure that people not just recognize diversity and equity, but they really understand it's about inclusion and belonging, and for people to feel like they need to be right where they are.
I love the themes of belonging that have come out of this, because that is a huge part of my journey in rooms where I felt like I'm the only one. In science, has been so common to walk into a room and be one of the only women in that room. And the ways that I have navigated that always come back to finding belonging either in that room with allies or outside that room with communities that I can turn back to. It is friends who are also women in STEM who we can trade stories and share support with. It's teachers, going back to the teachers in high school who supported me when I was one of the only girls in my physics class even then, and thinking about what were the things that they told me that made me believe that I could keep going. It's also, as we talk about the sense of like validity for you to be in that room, or people saying you can't do it, or why would you be able to do this? I've found that in those rooms, spite is actually sometimes a really great motivator. Being able to say, you think I can't do this? Watch me prove you wrong. And that combination of a little bit of humor, a little bit of spite, and a lot of community and belonging makes it possible to navigate those rooms and to kick the door off the hinges, make sure that it can never be shut behind you, and offer the ways to sponsor others into that room with you so that you're maybe the first, but you're never ever the last.
Well, I just want to say you all are such an inspiration for all of us young girls out here.